Welcome back. All right, so first off, in this News of the Day video, I wanted to send my thoughts out to Damar Hamlin, to his teammates, to the Cincinnati Bengals as well that were there for that. And so everybody's Bills Mafia today. That's just the rule. That's the rule. Everybody's part of the Bills Mafia today. And here's to hoping that Hamlin comes back as soon as possible. The good news being that he did get defibrillated CPR right away, and they did get his heart restarted. So that's huge right there. That's huge. And so the sooner you get that going, the better. I know I took first aid. I did first aid for over 12 years. And it's one thing when you're doing the training. That is the key. Immediate attention. Make sure you get that heart restarted. And the sooner the better. And of course, him being younger bodes well too. So that being said, we'll move into today's news of the day, which starts off with the reason Chris Letang wasn't in yesterday's game between Pittsburgh and Boston in the Winter Classic. Letang is currently on the non-roster for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're letting him have his time, and he needs that. His father's passed away. So that's always a tough thing, losing a parent. It is never easy, and having gone through that myself, it's something that takes a while. So for me, my job gave me a week off. I would think for Letang, probably around that amount of time before he returns to the team, but everybody's different. So hopefully for Letang, he takes the time he needs. I know the team will support him as they have to. It has been a rough season for Chris Letang thus far. Tokarski's been recalled by the Pittsburgh Penguins, I would think due to the injury to Jari, although I haven't seen an update on how long Jari's expected to be out. He did try to play through it yesterday after clearly his knee was bothering him. So we'll see, right? It didn't look like it was going to be a major injury, and Tokarski being recalled doesn't tip their hand either way. You need to have a backup when you're playing, and Tokarski's a useful backup, a useful number 3 guy. So we are in an age now where every team kind of has to have 3 NHL-ready goaltenders. We saw that with Boston with Kincaid. You have to have 3 NHL-ready goaltenders. New Jersey, they have Schmid. It's their number 3 as well. So that's maybe at some point I'll do a video on that, how many teams have a really good number 3 and how many might have a bit of a questionable number 3. I know that comment section could only go well. But yeah, so Tokarski's recalled. We'll see how things go for Pittsburgh over the next little while. Yesterday, they announced the Winter Classic. I wasn't going to do a video just specifically on that. I felt like it belonged in a news video. That's why I didn't just drop everything and do a video on that right away. The 2024 Winter Classic will be in Seattle. Now, I agree with people who say Seattle hasn't paid their dues to get a Winter Classic, but at the same time, it is nice to see 2 teams that haven't been in one before. So it's Vegas and Seattle, teams 31 and 32 against one another. I've also seen it should be Vancouver. I think Seattle and Vegas works. Seattle and Vegas are 2 cities that aren't that far away from one another. I know people are going to go get a map and go, well, it's that close to California. I know. But there is that rivalry there between the 2, and I think that rivalry is going to grow, especially if Seattle were to make the playoffs this year and do well and end up against Vegas in the playoffs. And that could happen. Say Seattle ends up top 3 in the Pacific, wins that first round. They could get Vegas in round 2. So by the time we reach this Winter Classic next year, maybe they hate each other. But either way, I think it'll be fun. The one question mark, of course, is weather. Seattle getting a game, we'll see whether or not it's raining. My guess is it's January, so yes. It may very well be snowing. It might be really clear and cold. The weather's a little bit warmer in Seattle than in Vancouver. They get a little bit less rain than Vancouver, but the weather is very, very similar. And of course, since Vancouver's outdoor game against Ottawa that didn't turn out to be much of an outdoor game at all, I do wonder, whether or not Vancouver ever gets one again. So Seattle might be as close as Vancouver gets to having one. Robbie Fabry is expected to return tomorrow for the Detroit Red Wings. They've got him skating on a line now with Sundqvist. He's going to be back in the lineup. That's great news. Fabry making his season debut. With Fabry, injuries have been an issue throughout his career, but he's now had that major injury. He's been out for quite some time. Hopefully he can stay healthy from here and give Detroit a little bit of that depth scoring that they could use. So we'll see with Detroit having him in the lineup, what happens to their lineup from here. But there's lineup decisions to be made around the NHL when guys come back, right? Speaking of which, the Philadelphia Flyers have taken Bobby Brink off the IR. They've loaned him to Lehigh Valley, so he's down in the AHL right now. He will be down there for however long I would think that it takes to get up to speed. I think 2 weeks is the max that they can leave him down there, though, since it's a loan. But yeah, Brink is a player that was expected to have some impact as a rookie, so we'll see if he does come back up to Philadelphia, how he does, or what the plan is going forward. But Philadelphia is coming off of a pretty successful road trip through California, so yeah, I think this could be a good thing for them. Now, for Ottawa, a team that's also been dealing with a lot of injuries, the good news is Matthew Joseph has resumed skating and is seen as relatively close to coming back, considering the other two that are on the board here. Josh Norris, according to Bruce Garrick, is not expected back anytime soon. It's expected he's going to be out for quite a while. Now, considering we're into January, the season extends till April, that's not great news. So that tells me he's probably not going to be back by trade deadline, or he's just not progressing the way that they had hoped that he would. So Norris is out. Mott's considered to be out for weeks longer. So for Tyler Mott, bottom six forward, pretty darn good penalty killer as well. He's out for at least a couple more weeks, and we'll see how long he's out. But for Ottawa, yeah, dealing with injuries has been a thing. Brandstrom's going to be in the lineup for them tonight, and saying basically it's next man up mentality, which I think it's been around the NHL in general. It's been a lot of injuries this year. Speaking of which, TJ Oshie is a game time decision for Washington, so nothing on Wilson or Backstrom yet. Remember, Backstrom, it was said he'd return around middle of the season. That was the expectation, and we're right around the middle of the season. It sneaks up on you. You know, looking at the standings the other day, and I was realizing, wow, we are almost to the halfway mark. The Kings are at 40 games. There's some teams at 38, 37 games. We're almost to the halfway mark. I can do a report card at the halfway mark. I'm sure that'll go well. But yeah, Oshie's a game time decision for Washington, so sooner he comes back, the better. Washington, a team that has been ravaged by injuries, as has... There's a lot. There's a lot of teams that have. This is why I think that depth is more important now in the NHL than ever. The teams that end up finishing at or near the top of the standings are teams that either are very fortunate not to have the major injury problems, or they have the depth to overcome them. World Juniors, tomorrow we have the semifinals. Of course, last night, the talk of all the hockey world was Connor Bedard, the fantastic overtime goal he scored against Slovakia. It was truly a fantastic goal. They had to go to overtime against Slovakia because the Slovakian goaltender was fantastic. So the semifinals tomorrow are Sweden versus Czechia. That should be a really fun one. We also have Canada versus the USA. And I put Bedard underneath because it kind of feels like it's Bedard against the USA. I think that he's really solidified his spot as the number one draft pick. And while you don't want to put too much stock into this tournament that's just, a couple of weeks long, it's hard not to be really, really impressed with Bedard and say, he might be worth tanking for. I also wanted to throw out there, too, I saw some comments yesterday about how the term tanking on some level bothers people, that players don't tank. Of course they don't. The GM just makes sure that it's kind of hard to win. And they don't make it all that subtle at times. Chicago's a good example where they've just torn the whole thing down. And whoever's left right now is basically going to be up for sale, other than a couple. And so if they end up getting Bedard in the draft in June, it is in June this year, we'll see how that goes for them. But yeah, he's a special talent. The kid's just special talent. He's dragged Canada this far. I don't think Canada's had a great tournament, but he's had a fantastic tournament, and that helps. Sometimes you have the right guy, it helps. So Vancouver, because what would a day be without Vancouver being on the board? And I kind of have to talk about this because the comment section is still JT Miller. I still like JT Miller, the player. I agree Miller's had a rough season. I agree Miller's had a brutal season. And that he's committed turnovers, and that his temper makes it look worse. He's a very temperamental guy. And they asked Miller about this today in the scrum, and he said, basically, he's trying to keep that under control, but he's an emotional guy. He wants to win. The losing is frustrating him. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like being so far out of the playoffs. And he doesn't like going through another mediocre season in Vancouver. He didn't say that word by word, so don't quote me on that. But then Bruce Boudreau's asked about JT Miller, and I thought the quote here, I wanted to highlight this because I thought this was important, said, I'd rather have an emotional guy that cares than a non-emotional guy that doesn't. So there are players in the NHL, and have always been players in the NHL, that go out there, they get their stats, they play really well, but the passion, that thing you're looking for from them, isn't necessarily there. And I know for me as a fan, I have seen players for many years that, go out there, they get their points, but still frustrate me because it doesn't feel like they're out there playing for their teammates. It doesn't feel like they have a passion for the game, that they're out there, they're playing, they're going through the motions, but the real feeling you want from that player isn't there. And then you'll see them post game and they're being interviewed and they're like, yeah, we'll figure it out. I think we're playing well. We had some good moments here, and they'll say all the right things, but there's not that sense of frustration. And with Miller, you get that frustration. And so I think what Boudreau's saying is true. There are non-emotional players, and we always hear about how hockey players are so cookie cutter and they're so boring and they always give the same answer. Well, here's a guy who doesn't. Here's a guy who just lays it all out there, and people don't like it. So it's how hockey works. You get told to express your opinion, and if your opinion is one that people don't like, then you get told maybe your opinion belongs over in a corner and quiet. So I'm not saying he's had a good season. He hasn't, but he's signed for 7 years, and that 7-year contract kicks in this coming July. So for the Canucks, I'll be interested to see how they figure this out and what they end up doing. The interesting part too is that if they hadn't signed him to that contract and he was having this season with these results and he didn't have a contract extension, I'm sure people would say, oh, well, now we can trade him. He wouldn't have much value on the market right now either. So at any rate, no matter what you do from this point on, I think the Canucks are still going to be under fire. And this month's schedule is brutal. So this month's schedule is really, really rough. If the Canucks can come through it with any kind of a decent result, if they can somehow rally. I remember when Brian Burke went to the team many, many, many years ago and said, I'm not changing anything. The guys in the room are the guys in the room. I believe in you. And then the team turned it around. Nobody expected that from that Canucks team. So I'm not going to bury the Canucks team as they currently are. But they need to win this month, right? Both for themselves, for JT Miller's sanity, as well as for Bruce Boudreau. And again, yeah, there are going to be hockey players that are jerks. They don't get drafted because they're really nice guys. They're going to be hockey players that come off as jerks. It's just, that's the way it works. It's just when you're winning, it's easier. It's like I've said, and that's from a locker room perspective as well. I think that when the team is winning and doing well, I think any personality conflicts kind of get shoved aside. But yeah, when you're losing, that's when the personality conflicts come to the fore. All right, Winnipeg fans, there was some hype about whether or not Rick Bowness would announce somebody coming back tonight. He didn't. Although Morrissey's expected to play tonight after not taking part in an optional skate yesterday, so that raised the concern. I think for Morrissey, maybe his back was hurting him from carrying the team over the last few weeks. He's been absolutely ridiculously good. What is a 14-game point streak? Yeah, he's going to play. Other players, though, of note, Ehlers, Perfetti, Schmidt, all of them are seen as close enough that we're having the discussion about them, none of them ready tonight. And then it's a matter of whether or not they're going to be ready for their next game. I think their next game is on Friday. So it is a matter of the Jets are going to get healthier soon. And that's huge news, of course. The Jets right up near the top there in their division. And getting Nick Ehlers back in particular would be huge. Not that getting Perfetti back would be huge as well. Perfetti's had a good year. It's a shame he got hurt when he did. And Nate Schmidt's a good defenseman. And I think they miss him back there too. So we'll see what happens with the Jets. But let me know your thoughts in general in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.